doing these for a couple of years.
I hope you enjoyed the waiting room.
Yes.
We decorated it especially for you.
I really like the color palette.
We've been doing these for a couple of years, and sometimes we get a curveball. We got to keep ourselves on our toes. So no, in all seriousness, thank you for your patience. And it's good to see you. Thank you all for turning on cams. Well, Michelle, Neil, you are in the dark, but I can still see you. Hello, Laura, Sam, Kathleen, Bill Kite, hello. Greetings. Mike Christensen, I can see you, Mike, over there. Whatever it is you're doing. Oh, making lunch. That sounds great.
Making popcorn.
Yeah. Welcome. Hello, Sarah, Tamara, Todd Amundsen. Hello. Hey, Rory. Greetings. Let's see. Again, thank you all for your patience. I'm going to go ahead and flash up our opening poll. And let's see here. So
I love seeing Michelle Keller still in the house, even. Good to see you, Michelle.
Thanks, Greg. Great to be here.
Okay.
All right, so do share screen. And I'm going to share. So, okay, present. All right, Halloween was just a few days away, so this should be fresh in your mind. And I request, yes, to go to menti.com on your phone or on a web browser, menti.com. Use those eight digits, 37182681. And let's see, sorry, admit all for the waiting room. And you can either say, what's your least favorite Halloween candy or most hated Halloween candy? And so please. All right. I shouldn't flash this up, actually. I shouldn't be showing you all what people are voting on. So that's a little unfair. I was going to get, I love this question though. It's so great.
I kind of love candy corn too, Tina. You guys can send us individual snail mails with individual candy corns.
One of our team members was talking about this. Even worse, maybe, than candy corn is like the candy pumpkins. So at least candy corn, you can like, well, I'm gonna eat the white part first, and the green part next, and the orange. You can make a game out of the tastelessness of it all. But the pumpkin ones is even a bigger thing.
Malted milk balls are pretty bad. Twix? Who put Twix?
I know, that's wrong.
That's blasphemy.
Yeah.
Whoppers are my favorite candy.
I know, well, but how are Whoppers different than the malted milk balls? They're kind of the same, right? Just with chocolate on the outside, is that the difference?
I thought they were like the gooey ones, you know, that like they kind of look like Tootsie Rolls, but they're covered in grossness. Maybe I'm wrong.
One thing that's not on here, I always think of as like filler candy, is like those Hershey's Special Dark Chocolates. As a kid, I just like, I guess I'll eat this. We got nothing left at the bottom of the barrel.
You see somebody put raisins.
Exactly.
It's so true. Or like, you know, they used to give apples. Like,
Yeah.
first of all, you shouldn't eat those anymore. But second of all, that's not candy.
Circus peanuts. That's a funny one. Circus peanuts.
These are great. This is the most important stuff right here, folks. We'll get into the other things in a moment, but this is kind of the main question, the most important we have to ask. But let's actually, no, in all seriousness, we did start a little bit late, so let's get into it. We'll keep this poll going, and so you can continue to respond. I just love this. But again, a little offended that Whoppers is on this list. And Reese's, come on. America's best candy is on this list. That's okay. But let's go back to our slides, the main thing, COVID revisited. Sorry, we had some technical things this morning, so we thank you all for your patience in getting to where we are here right now. And let's talk about COVID. So,
wait, that's still here?
What's that?
COVID's still here? I thought we moved past COVID.
Well, according to what we thought, our first webinar ever was about COVID and SCM. And at the time we said, we had the question in the poll, and I think it was like, yeah, what, how do we ask the question? When things return to normal, let's just say, for the sake of argument, 4 to 6 weeks from now, and then we'll give a follow-on question. And now, yeah, by my rough count, I had to go through the weeks to kind of work back from it. It's been 81 weeks, a little off. Yeah, it's an interesting time. So we looked at all the polls from back then. Wendy did some very expert, very sophisticated analysis of the results from back then compared to your results now. Maybe Wendy, do you have any key takeaways before we jump into some of the data? Any key ahas?
You know, one of the things was talking about this, one of the kind of, I think the Menti poll that we did as the icebreaker was what you were feeling. And I thought that was pretty interesting. And I don't know, Chad, if we're going to do a Menti on that later, but, you know, a lot of the things that came back was stressed, you know, bored, tired, anxious. And so I think it's interesting that we're probably all still feeling that way, but we've probably all just gotten used to it. Like the Groundhog's Day is not ending. Maybe it looks a little different each day, but that was one of the interesting things. And then also, you know, people have kind of figured out the M&B stuff now a little bit, but that was a big topic of conversation is, oh my gosh, this is a really big non-routine event. Or maybe after 81 weeks, it is a routine event. So that was a big topic of conversation too.
Yeah, that's great. That's great, Wendy. Yeah. Let's we can flash up some of these things and like we said, kind of do a little bit of comparison, compare and contrast, if that's helpful for folks. And of course, we'll send these slides out afterwards, as we do for all of the webinars. But yeah, quick thanks to everyone who did respond. I think we got about 20 so responses. I think I'll call out Sarah York from Cascade, the most winning response. She had a bunch of great color commentary she had in there as well. But yeah, it was some great response from everybody. So kind of breaking down the questions, you know, one was about kind of program recruitment, like kind of engaging people to get them in. And so these questions were you're basically asking people how strongly they agreed or disagreed with these different statements. And so yeah, is that like the question of the nature of your, if your offering is being virtual compared to what it was before, is it easier to recruit based upon that? Definitely got some people that said that for sure. I think a response from, sorry, who they were saying, but basically talking about, yeah, that it can enable you to do things that if they would have had to have driven a couple hours to get to in-person workshops before, and now you can support them very easily. And so it's an easier lift in that way. I guess I'd say maybe often, I don't think we have it specifically called out as a question here, but sometimes many of your program designs have been like shorter duration workshops, virtual workshops, because they are virtual. It's just hard to be there for 6 to 8 hours. And so by making them be that shorter duration, that could be, again, an easier ask for people to join. But then similarly, so well, some things are easier, some things are harder. You know, you get competing priorities, whether it's changing of operations, if it's manufacturing. I feel like no one is doing the same thing they were doing before. Like either they're doing a lot less commercial real estate, or if they're manufacturing something that is needed less of nowadays, or they're doing a heck of a lot more. You know, and so they're busier than they were before. They're producing more of what they did before, or if it's like in the school setting, well, now that the schools are reopening, but then they're having to flex a lot more. And so those facilities, people are very busy. And so, yeah, it makes it harder. Definitely an introduction of the word resiliency. If that wasn't in our vernacular a couple of years ago, it sure is now when we're talking to people. Of course, cost savings has been a thing, as is now GHG reductions. And again, unrelated to COVID, but I think again, a more common term in how we're describing things now than we were 2 years ago. Yeah, a couple of open, these are some of the open comments we had. Yeah, internal staff time being a challenge just to do the recruiting. Yeah, people calling out the reliability of systems. So let's go back to the polls again and ask this larger group what your thoughts are. So we'll flash to this question: Are any of these topics currently delaying SCM implementation for your organization? So again, if you keep your browser open to menti.com with those digits, then this should have updated whether again on your phone or your web browser on your computer. Let's ask you to interact. And how many? We got 58 participants. Good solid numbers. I love this dot interface. It's so fun. So the questions we have here, for those of you who are only able to follow along on the phone, the options are participant staffing shortages because of their challenges in staffing at the participant level, how that's affecting MS implementation, supply chain issues, so how that's affecting participation, your team's bandwidth. Many organizations that are either utilities or other kinds of program administrators are very busy right now, as are a lot of the implementation firms. There's just lots going on, and so the bandwidth can be a challenge. Staffing is a challenge. Having employees can be a challenge. Interesting here. COVID outbreaks is only have one response here, which is actually, of course, good to hear. That would tend to also be a health impacts from those, and so that's good to hear. That's relatively low.
If you feel comfortable and you want to share your other reasons, putting them in the chat would be great too, around like what's delaying the implementation.
That's great.
From an SCM standpoint, that'd be really interesting to hear. I know for me, one of the questions that came up too was like, there was team bandwidth, but also what do you do if all of your team's working from home? How do you engage with them, right? So kind of the dynamic around engagement is different, which delays or makes implementation harder.
For sure. It's just hard all around. That's great. And actually, Wendy, if you could monitor the chat, I will.
Yeah, I asked a question in the chat about whether or not anybody had seen kind of people moving the types of things they were making. And there's a lot of makings of masks now, right? Looks like some ventilators as well. Looks like somebody switched to making medical staff plastic gowns. So it's interesting to see how people are still kind of moving to just support the COVID pandemic. Oh, that's interesting. Energy champion retiring and leaving. Yeah, probably some early retirements potentially because of the vaccine mandate, or just, you know, it's hard right now. And if you can, why not?
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Well, let's go to the next question we had here in the survey from before. So then we asked the question of how COVID has been affecting program delivery. So not just recruiting them in, but once they're in, how things have changed for you, how you're looking at things. And so some statements, one is that web-based delivery is pretty great, and seeing more of that, generally some more positive things. Some strong disagreements, but still, I would say definitely over the last couple of years, a general push towards maybe it's comfort from all of your ends as practitioners or from the ends of the customers. At the same time, a recognition that in person is kind of that's the gold standard. And so when you can do it, maybe if our programs have permanently changed in many ways, again, more than 2 more years ago, it was always in person, almost always. But now maybe it'll be mostly webinars and mostly web-based, and sporadically in person. Again, I'm just throwing that out there as some possibilities of like some more long-term shifts.
I think one of the things this shows, Chad, is that like web-based delivery is going to be a necessary evil, or perhaps a way to optimize and utilize and take advantage of your skills in that space moving forward.
It's a great call out for me. Yeah, definitely seen that here. Anything else in the comments? Yeah, just greater familiarity, better comfort overall. The next question was about savings opportunities. And so here, this was both in how, what the opportunities were kind of looking like, as well as how people were finding them. And so if you recall, when we first talked about this again, a year and a half ago, we're bringing up like, oh yeah, using FaceTime on your phone and actually doing walkthroughs with that. There was a suggestion back then also about people using headphones, basically being able to like walk at a distance from each other, but still being able to talk like on a group call, group chat, and be sharing, but not having to stand right next to somebody else to do it. So that's kind of captured here in these other technologies to facilitate the site visits or treasure hunts. Yeah, definitely seeing, some mixed thoughts here about like remote solutions. And yeah, the main things there. When we go to M&V, yeah, again, like what he said before, like the non-routine adjustment, the COVID adjustment, which of course, a lot of this kind of explains a lot of these different solutions. But yeah, Todd, you asked the question of planning for operational verification, and I was definitely thinking about operational variation. So that is to say, more starting up and shutting down, more variability in the organizations we're engaged with. And so just, before that would have been a curveball that, oh my gosh, we have to rethink the model, we have to rethink XYZ. And now, frankly, maybe our methods are we're just more accustomed to those kinds of changes, or having to go to plan B, to having custom models not work for more customers than they did before. Maybe before 9 out of 10 they worked, and now we're expecting more, like we call it over here, more bottom-up analysis as one of the first go-to things, or the things you'll go to very quickly. So yeah, I guess I'd say just having more variability in how we go about things, and being more accustomed to shifting more quickly their M&B approaches.
On a customer perspective, one of the kind of comments that came up last year in this regard was concern that current data will give facility managers a disproportionately high savings calculation, which will then make expectations harder for the next project, which I thought was kind of interesting. And I wonder if some of that is occurring. I think as an industry, we did a great job of getting all of our customers to just shut down as much as we could. And so what does that mean moving forward when they're opening back up and doing more projects? Like, are those expectations of savings from upper management, from your executive sponsors, staying, even though they're unrealistic moving forward?
Yeah. Let's see. Again, we'll have some notes in there about the M&B. This even eye chart. Let me make this a little bigger for you all. And again, we'll send this out. But this one is basically how responsive, from your perspectives, you're seeing these different sectors of customers. We asked about these customers again a year and a half ago, and so basically how to interpret this is, again, the sectors across the bottom, and then you can see the variation. Turn your head sideways. The variation on whether they've been not at all responsive, or not applicable, not responsive, to gray being extremely responsive. So on the right would be more responsive, and the left would be less for any one of these areas. It's again, this will be something you'll want to, if you're interested, you'll want to sit down and just kind of think about and look at some of these different responses. I would say the other thing that we added, and again, Wendy and I looked at this a number of different ways to prepare, is we add this little handy number on top of that chart, which basically applied some scoring. So basically said, okay, if someone got a response that said extremely responsive, then we gave that a 4, and then a very responsive was a 3, and a 2, and a 1, and a 0, and a 0. I actually didn't include the NAs, and so actually wait. Let's go to this version. This one we actually removed the not applicables. So, so it starts with not all responsive. And so with that, then we came up with these scores. And so basically kind of a weighted number that, again, favors these higher responsive, right, or more responsive customers. And so then did some handy dandy little color coding, what's the word? blanking on it. You all know what I'm talking about in Excel. So thank you. So yeah, big numbers. So 30, like water, wastewater, cold storage, food processing, and high-tech manufacturing would be all the numbers that are above 20. And those would indicate generally, again, higher, more of a shift on the right side as you're looking at it. The thing, so a couple things to call out. Of course, that's a limited. That number is a data point. Looking at these spreads is a data point. There's a couple other ways we could have done the analysis as well, and Wendy and I talked about that as more like, well, if we did this and applied this and did this with our math, that could have told us a different story. And I guess I'd say there's a few. And again, point is, there's a number of ways to look at it. I think a couple things here. So for example, so pulp and paper has an 18, brewing has an 18. And that's, again, where the value of looking at the chart above can be more, not more telling, but again, this 18 and 18, that's the same number. Well, yeah, but then looking at the spread is again helpful then to see, okay, well, what does that really mean? Or again, a 19 and a 19 for transportation and a 19 for biopharma, but then actually the shape of the diagrams, the shapes of the responses themselves, again, are different. And I'll say too, it's a small response set as well. So please don't claim any savings on this to your commission, anything else.
One of the things that was interesting is that we did this exact same responsiveness survey in April of last year. And, not surprising, the healthcare, sector continues to struggle a little bit more, but overall, everybody seemed to like shift almost consistently to more somewhat responsive or very responsive, with some pretty high, extremely responsive, which I thought was pretty impressive. I think that just goes to show us, right, that people are kind of settling into the new normal. The other thing that I noticed was like that higher education government area really started pushing into becoming more responsiveness. And I think that might have to do something with like the public sector's mission, right, to create a difference. And so that was something that was pretty interesting, is those strong shifts, whereas some other organizations like the auto manufacturing appear to stay about the same. And I think that just has to do with the fact of like the different types of stressors that are now on the auto manufacturing, like supply chain issues and other types of maybe staffing shortages that are occurring. So it's no longer fear of the pandemic, but it's more what the pandemic is causing that's keeping people from engaging.
So great. Thanks, Wendy. Oh yeah, one other thing, yeah, sorry, Wendy and I did discuss as well in this, is that the nature of the respondents. So again, I complimented Sarah, and I'll pick on Sarah York, not pick on, but more recognize that out of the respondents, those respondents tended to be more people that were tended to work more on industrial programs. And so then we saw more, we saw more responses then that kind of favored some of these kind of, typical sectors that are addressed in a lot of industrial SCM programs. Water, wastewater, cold storage, food processing, for example, are three that are some of the first often hit in many programs. Food processing is almost across the United States. Water, wastewater, same thing, of course. And so with that, with more responses in those, then those are going to tend to be higher as well, just because it's a greater exposure to those overall. So again, that may be something to see. Great. Then let's see, is there anything else? We can basically go back to the polls. It's a great question idea that Wendy came up with about how you're feeling connected with these different types of individuals from your participants. And so again, nminty.com, use the same numbers if you haven't responded to a poll yet. And you can see basically for these different, for 5 different participant types, people that we often engage in STEAM programs, but you can rank them on how you're feeling more or less, more strongly or less connected to those individuals. So, and then again, if you're following along on the phone, you can't see this. The 5 types would be energy champions, executive sponsors, energy data wizards or data champions, facility/maintenance team members, the people that are the technical, either building operators and or people that are the main people often that are doing the technical wrench turning and so on. And then I would say just general energy team members that are not captured above.
Yeah, I think this is more connection like than how you would normally feel in a regular year, right? That's what you're referring to, like as in general during normal times.
Yeah, as compared to before, if you've been around.
Normal times in quotes.
What is normal, Wendy? I don't even know.
I don't think we know anymore.
Yeah. As you're looking at the chart, you can see, in a way, the same thing. So you can see the number indicates the kind of the average, the 3.8, 2.4, and so on for these different topics. And then as I hover over it, you can actually see the responses that make up that. And so again, the handy thing here is, if you're seeing this, executive sponsor 2.4, facility maintenance energy team members 2.3, and energy team members is 2.2. Pretty similar numbers, but then you can also see the spread in responses behind them to show again like the shape of responses behind them, if you will, to kind of say, okay, for example, general energy team members, pretty spread, pretty wide across. Some, a little bit of stronger connection, a lot of less connection, but some pretty even responses across the board. Versus executive sponsors, it's a lot more in the middle, a bigger hump.
One of the things that would be interesting to know is whether or not the energy champions here are energy managers. And so therefore I can see them doubling down on SEM and the coaching support to try to get more help versus a facilities manager who has a double duty of an energy champion, then you might see a reduction, but it looks like overall those people that have been tagged as energy champion are doubling down. They're working harder. And as you can see, their job is harder, right? Like they're not getting as much engagement from their energy teams anymore.
That's a brilliant point. Yeah, for your programs that do have, either an energy managers that are all paid for or partially paid for, or somehow, but in some way dedicated, perhaps. And maybe the program isn't paid, but they just have dedicated people for that role, versus a champion that's doing this in that phrase off the side of their desk, doing this as a thing that's important to them, but they still have to prioritize it amidst a number of other priorities. It's a great point. All right, let's go. A couple other questions from all of you. Here's a question: any sectors that you see are no longer working from home, that were previously working from home the last year and a half, you're seeing return to work? And this is just a curiosity that we have from your seats, what you're seeing. I'm in Stillwater's office today, as an example. Schools, yep. K-12, schools, yeah. High tech,
The dichotomy of this could be very interesting too, right? I think there was an article, it was one of the larger chains, maybe it was Walmart or something, where obviously the people that work in the stores are required to go back to work, but then they had work at home mandates for, the office staff, the back of house. And that creates a really interesting conversation around equity, right? You've got the lower paying frontline workers having to go back, create a higher risk, but then you've got also mandates to stay home and not be in the office from those large chains.
Yeah. It is a complex time for sure. Pulp and paper, okay. And wastewater. Okay. We got a good critical set of responses. Let's go. I think we got one more. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Last question, and then we'll have this one's about your favorite vacation during COVID. Please type in over the last year and a half. Hopefully you've taken some time away. I know we've been challenged, or it's been in some cases handy to work from home. It's easy, you just stroll on down there, but sometimes it's hard to separate. And so I'm curious what your favorite vacation spot has been, or vacation type. These webinars. Thanks, Mike Christensen. I'm just kidding. I have no idea who that was. Road trips.
Chad, you know me
11
too well.
What's that, Mike?
I said you know me far too well.
Lost Coast backpacking trip. That's a perfect socially
That's-
distanced activity.
A lot, and that Lost Coast, right? That's that area of Northern California that's like, I mean, you think all of California is so covered, right? But like Lost Coast is that area that's like hours from anything, right? That's the one, right, Wendy? Yeah. I know.
I think so. That was my impression.
Leavenworth, by the way, for those of you who are not from the Northwest, Leavenworth, Washington, I've never been, but it's a beautiful, beautiful area. Lake Superior Shore, very nice. Alaska salmon fishing, really? That sounds amazing. Wuhan, that's some clever responded. That's great. Backcountry skiing, yes, I just ordered some new ski crampons for my boards. That's awesome. New Hampshire lakes, yeah, a lot of great stuff in the Shire. Excellent. We will have a follow-on question. We'll come back to this. The question I'll ask next, don't type it in this one yet, is what's your top priority vacation you have coming up? But I'm not going to flash that poll up yet because we're going to cover some good other updates and content. So hold that thought, write it down. It's coming back to you soon. So let's see, back to the slides. Leadership team update. So, and again, I'm going to try not to read all these slides again. You'll get them all. But basically, just to describe kind of where we've been as a leadership team for this group, and so to date, and essentially we started the group, going on almost 4 years ago, and then had a revision to the group a year ago, and in that revision a year ago established essentially a 3-year term, with every year then essentially roughly 1/3 of the organization of the leadership team cycles off and then gets replaced. And so then we have some consistency, some longevity in those 3-year terms. And so you can see here kind of who we've been interested in the past and kind of, again, how we got to this place. So then this slide describes, okay, where we are now. And again, so then 3 people will be cycling off the group. We'll be looking for nominations for people that would apply. And so for those people that we'll be looking to, of course, people that were nominated or applied a year ago. We had some great, very compelling and interesting people a year ago. So from those folks, from those who are members of the organization, as well as from the larger community, people that are not members but are definitely supportive of this, come to the webinars or involved. And so we'll be asking you if you're interested. The 3-year term would start this January of 2022, and then again go through December of 2024. 2022, 3 and 4. 3 years, and again, the cycle then repeats itself. So we'll be asking this question again a year from now for the next set of people, and so on. We'll be using Constant Contact as the platform. Will be generally migrating from using SurveyMonkey to using Constant Contact. It's a part of the support we get from ACEEE. And so these dates, or rough dates, will be having this more formally coming out to you in the next few days, but generally in November, asking for your nomination application if you're interested. And then we would then vote. The existing leadership team would be voting on the applicants. You can see here again the consistent interest from previous that were interested in, continue to be interested in program administrators, but also now that while we've brought some good program administrators in, we're then also saying, what else do we need? And definitely we're definitely interested in the evaluation community. And so if you're in that group, or if you know people in that group that would be potentially interested, then would be great. Of course, we're interested in other forms of diversity. That continues to be a priority for us. Definitely want to represent different regions of the US as well as from Canada. And the example I gave here, by the way, just to show we could have like a intersectionality, I guess, maybe not a bad word for it, but a program administrator from Canada would be great, like as an example. And then definitely your knowledge of SEM and other related areas, that's definitely of interest to us as well. So you can bring background. And then also, of course, like your skills and interests that you have. And so, for example, in the last few folks that we brought on, they've really done a great job of really helping us to think through our finance and think through our membership. It's been wonderful. But definitely would be looking for people that are have facilitation chops, can co-lead the webinars, SEM Summit, and so on, for example, or playing a role with our research activities or fundraising. So those are all things, again, would be interested. And so, yeah, so to please consider applying. We'd love to have you involved. I should say that if that doesn't work out, or if that's not what you're interested in, you're like, I want to be more involved, but that's not for me. Or if it doesn't work out that you are selected, we have been trying to, haven't been successful yet, but to really launch some committees that would be like more standing committees that would be addressing some key priority areas for us. Research for sure is one of those. We want to be able to do more in the research area, and with that, we just need essentially more bandwidth, more people that can help out to kind of to PM some of the activities as we bring on contracted research firms to handle some of the lifting we'll be doing, as an example. Then we need people to help manage that, and so just calling that out. Of course, the engagement, I mentioned that before, helping us to think about fundraising, and then other areas too that we'll uncover. Wendy, is there anything else you'd add in all this, the talk about leadership team, or again, or frankly, Greg or Katie, our chair and co-chair, anything else you guys would add?
No, I think the only thing I'd add is that as we seek to launch these subcommittees, one of the commitments that I know at least some of us on the LT that may be rolling off are, willing to kind of support these committees as well in leadership teams. So if you do roll on and you think, what am I going to do? We're here to, we'd be here to support you. So that's something to think about too, is we're not, the leadership team members that are going away aren't necessarily leaving the North American SEM community.
That's great. That's great. Thanks, Wendy. Perfect. Well then, again, thank you all for your interest, and thank you for your enthusiastic support and for coming on and being involved as a part of the SM community, as a member of the North American Collaborative. So with that, let's transition to the SEM success stories. You may recall last December, our webinar was all about SEM successes, and actually leading into that, we had many of you submit success stories you thought were some of the best ones of the year. And then in the webinar itself, or actually leading into that, the leadership team members voted on what they thought were the most compelling ones. We had those presented out in front of everybody, and then had you all vote on what you thought the top winners were. And it was a lot of fun. And it's definitely something we feel that we have the ability to, in this group, is to harvest those, to share those, and celebrate those successes. And so one of the things we'll be setting up also in Constant Contact is like a standing survey, that's like that'll be ongoing, and a place for us to gather your success stories from big and small. We'll give you some guidance on what those look like, but to gather those things and to be able to bring those in together, and so that you can all then reference them as well. And so we'll be harvesting those things, sharing those. We have a regular newsletter, one for example, that'll be coming out here very soon. And so really spotlighting those, specifically in the regular newsletter is really focusing on the success stories of from the members, but sharing those with a larger community. And then again, same thing in the next webinar we'll have in December is to share this round of successes. And so we'll send an email out following this webinar that'll have the notes and so on, but I'll also have the link to where to share the successes and so you can know where to post those. But again, know that again, this will lead into again more sharing of those successes in the newsletters overall on an ongoing basis, and you'll be have a chance at being one of the best successes of the year recognized this December. Anything else you want to add for that, Wendy? Pretty straightforward. Yeah. Cool. Next, what else is happening? There's a lot happening. So first of all, North American Collaborative on the North American Collaborative side with the SEM directory. So we've had Walt Tennyson from the USCPA has been leading this handy little project that I realized as I copied. undo. As I copy this over, there we go. Yeah, but basically call out that we have, based on people have responded, we've identified 60 plus current and past SEM programs. We have this handy dandy directory online, and you can see here kind of sorted. Well, first of all, you can see, yeah, the US is beating Canada 48 to 18, and I'm just kidding, it's got a Raz. I assume Kevin Wallace is on the phone, so I'm just trying to keep him in line. But you can also see here by region. Northwest has always had the most. I say always, for a long time has had the most. Look at the Northeast, everybody. They haven't been snoozing. Northeast is taking off. If we had a chart number of programs in the Northeast compared to the Northwest, I bet the Northeast, their rate of deployment is really blowing up, which is really exciting. But yeah, you can see again that the exact information on that. Here's a quick little snapshot of what that list looks like. And again, you can go to that on the NASEMC website on our North American Collaborative subsite of that. And so you can see that there. So definitely go out there, see if your program is on the list. If it's not, you can let us know. There's an online form because yeah, we're trying to capture all that information together into one handy place. I see, for example, Hawaii. Come on, Hawaii. Who gets that? Who's working on that? I think it's, yeah, it doesn't seem fair. No, it's wonderful. We'll get some great programs on here. It's so exciting to see. And again, as thinking about, what the North American Collaborative is all about, was to just trying to, increase the adoption of SEM, increase the deployment of SEM programs, as well as to elevate the ones that are, everyone that is working in SEM, to elevate those programs and have them do more and to do things better. And so a big part of that is just to kind of just putting our arms around this. And so that's a big hats off to Walt for getting this list put together and getting it started. And thank you all again for your responses to get this established. With that, we'll go then to other SEM happenings. Just this last month, a very outstanding fall workshop. Sarah, could you put how many fingers in the I can see in the cam. How many? Is this the 10th one we've had? I guess if it's been more than 10 fall workshops, you would need 11 fingers or more.
It's at least the 10th. We're at the point where it's at the debate of, is it the 10th, 11th, or something?
Yeah, that's exciting. It's yeah. So yeah, 10th anniversary. It's one of those things. It's like, could be the 11th, but it's the 10th anniversary, or you count that first time, or is it 1 year? It's confusing. But I'll tell you what's not confusing. Great attendance, a lot of fun, amazing breakouts on GHG, DEI, all kinds of cool stuff. Yeah, it was a very fun event. So big hats off to the Northwest SEM leadership team and all the group that pulled that all off just a few weeks ago. Earlier in the month, last month, the industry partners meeting at the CE industry partners meeting, there's this SEM committee met, and they did some great things. They're just some of the key outcomes that I asked walkers to send my way to call out. But CE has for a long time done some really very important and what's the word I want to say, catalytic work, I think, in what we do, and they continue to do that and are always kind of looking ahead and how they can provide a positive impact. And so I think Walker will be sharing some more information here in the next few weeks with that group. And then lastly, Greg, Greg, can you hear me? Are there anything else also from the Northeast Collaborative that needs to be shared? If you're on mute, Greg. Bigger. Okay.
Greg might be listening in from a car right now, so
Oh,
he may not be able to unmute while driving.
Well, definitely always great things happening in the Northeast. You saw the number of programs that have been implemented and happening out there. And so, yeah, potentially more to come in that area. Then we'll go to the Canadian SEM market study. I just saw a message posted this morning. One of my teammates said, "Hey, have you seen this thing?" I said, "You know what? On the SEM Collaborative webinar today. We're going to talk about this, and to do that, we actually, I think Ed Ryder just showed up, and can provide a few pieces of information about that. Ed, are you there and unmuted? Unmuted being the key. I think you're there. So then a question. Oh yeah. Okay, great.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, so let's see if I can figure out how to share the slides.
Or actually, I'm sharing my screen that has these 2 slides that you've shared with me. Is that fine? Or I can.
Yep. Why don't you go to the first slide then?
Yes.
And let me just summarize that the Natural Resources Canada had provided support for ACEEE to do a study on how much SEM could grow in Canada, what the impact would be. And what we found in this study that was recently released, that is this week, is that SEM across Canada can provide 1 to 19% of the 46 million metric tons per year of CO2 that is targeted by the Canadian government for industry to reduce by 2030. And that 1 to 19% depends on the different type of scenario used. But bottom line, what it shows is the impact from SEM could be substantial. And of course, to achieve that, one needs to overcome several different barriers to spur participation and to get additional support from the federal government in Canada. Some of the investment options that we found in this report include financing of energy efficiency measures, capital, as you can see, deferment, discount, or reuse of the carbon tax for companies that are driving SEM, and recognition of those companies that are really delivering on SEM to spur others to follow. You can find more details about the report in the link that I show on the first slide. If you go to the second slide, Greg, what you'll see in the second slide is just a vignette from a couple of the figures in the report. The first one on the upper right shows that for the electricity savings, you see considerable variation depending on the province. Part of that story is where those provinces are in their journey on implementing SEM. Another part of it deals with what's the dominant source of electricity in those areas and how SEM could impact that. There are several other factors associated with that. Additionally, in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see an illustration of ways that SEM could be grown, including on the left-hand side of that lower figure, you'll see growing from the current base of participants. In the middle, you can see diversifying services and allowing you to connect with offerings across several different segments. And to the right, you can see tapping into segments that might be tangential or might be edge opportunities, as we call it in this report. So going back to the bullet points on the left-hand side, I'll just summarize that there's various approaches here for SEM to grow, for the impact to extend more than, say, the 3 years that we had assumed in this report. And also, we have in the report several different paths where policy needs to enable this type of growth in Canada. So there, let me just wrap it and say that there's a lot more details in the report itself. I encourage you to take a peek. And as you have comments, feel free to shoot me an email, or we can catch it on a further discussion here with the North American SEM Collaborative.
Thank you so much, Ed. That's so great. And I'll say again, of course, earlier I was ribbing Kevin on behalf of all of Canada, but in all seriousness, we, I know, for example, the Northwest Collaborative has had a emissions in a GHG focused working group that Mike Christensen from Energy 350, and I think Tran from Cascade have co-led, and that they did a survey of to understand kind of where programs were and what was happening. Again, most of the Northwest, and definitely I would say, if it's fair to say, canvas here, but definitely I think in a lot of cases in the U.S. we'll be looking to Canada to kind of figure out where do we go, and definitely will be kind of it's fair to say drafting off of what Canada's figuring out, and as we insert more and more GHG into what we're trying to address in our programs, and so definitely this could be a very useful resource. So thank you so much, Ed. And I do, yeah. There's actually, yeah, Mike, or not, I didn't see again if 2 is on. Is there anything else you'd add from that Northwest SM Collaborative GHG working group? I don't see Mike's on the cam anymore. Or Sarah, maybe if you could, if there's anything else, if folks are interested, I think they can reach out to that group. Is that fair? Yes. Okay, great. If there's a way for folks to get involved, we will put a quick plug if you're interested in working on GHGs in your efforts for how to hook in. Okay, so I mentioned before, that is the wrap up the core part of the content. Of course, this is what the North American Collaborative is all about. But we're also about the community, about having some fun. And so the other question asked before was, what's been your favorite vacation during COVID? The next question is, what's in the top of your vacation list right now? Kel, think long and hard about this, and what's going to be yours? Or Todd, Seth McKinney, nice to see you. Looking forward to catching up. Yeah, so let's see some good ones, folks. I'll pick on for this as well. Yeah, I see some wonderful people on the attendee list, by the way. So good seeing you all. Okay, seeing some responses coming in. Big Sky skiing. If that's skiing at Big Sky itself or skiing in the Big Sky state of Montana, either one is a good thing. Scotland sounds lovely. Norway, oh, Sevilla, are you kidding? So, yeah, Seville or Sevilla in the south of Spain, lovely. Chicago, hiking the Dolomites.
A lot of Europe.
Yeah, this is great. France, South France.
Lots of skiing.
Anywhere
Maybe somebody
outside.
skiing in France.
Yeah.
Or Norway.
I love anywhere outside of BC because, of course, the rest of the world wants to go to BC, and of course, people are in BC want to get out. Washington skiing, Colorado skiing with a cup of noodles. I'm not sure if that means something, but it's great. That's a code. Wendy, can you verbally share yours?
I will be hiking in the Dolomites next September.
That's yours.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's mine. Yeah,
You know
so
where-
I'm going to be doing it. I don't know exactly where, but it's going to be with the same company I circumnavigated Mount Blanc with in
Nice.
2018. So yeah.
I'll say for all of you, I know many of you are parents of relatively young children. Dolomites, very family-friendly place to take kids. Infinitely cheaper than Switzerland, and like insanely pretty. And again, I emphasize the family-friendly. So if you want to pick my brain about family trips in that neck of the woods, I'm happy to help. If you want to pick someone's brain about cool rock star non-kid trips, talk to Wendy Gibson.
My jam.
Yeah. Well, outstanding. And then I think we're at time. Anybody wants to stick around, they can. We can talk about vacations. Otherwise,
Thanks so much, everybody.
yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you on the next time. All right, take care, everyone.